Hey, Suns fans, what is going on? Welcome once again to the Suns Jam Session podcast. Now, I get it; it's a Sunday night, and if you're here watching us live, thank you. It means that you have completely neglected your family and decided to just say, "Hey, you know what? I'm just going to run down to the bathroom real quick. I'll be back in an hour." And that's what you're doing is you're spending the next hour with Matthew and I. So thank you for neglecting. Welcome, Matthew. How you doing tonight?
Hey, good. Yeah, I mean, that's how a lot of people do leave their families. They'll be right back and they never come back. So hopefully, hopefully we're not an excuse for that. But thanks for joining, everybody.
Yeah, maybe it's just like an hour that they're gone. In this case. So, again, if that's what you're
Okay.
doing, we appreciate it. And if you're watching live, thank you. If you're listening, we truly appreciate that as well as we rebuild our streaming base. We appreciate you doing so. So if you are listening to this, press that subscribe button. Let people know, hey, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm listening to. This is the best place to get the Suns content, even in the off season, because that's what we are in, Matthew. We are in the dog days of summer, my friend.
Yeah, definitely. At least a lot of us, football's coming up. But for the podcast itself, to be excited for 2 months until the season start, it's gonna be a struggle. But we'll get you there. We're gonna do our best.
We always do, we
One
we
viewer right now.
one viewer is joining us, and we thank you for it's tough this time of year, but you know what, there's still always plenty going on, and that's one of the reasons why we like to do a podcast year round. I mean, yeah, we're the guys who go live after every Suns game, but we also like to talk Suns in the off season and just talk to each other. This is how you and I connect. We used to live together, now we don't, so we have a podcast so everybody gets to listen and watch as we interact and just say, hey, how you doing, man? So Matthew, how you doing? How's your Sunday going?
Oh, it's going good. Actually, today hit the gym early, but I think at my age now, there's something that happens every time I get going in the gym and I'm producing a little bit of going to the next tier and weights. Just something always pulls, something always
Ooh.
hurts. So I need to get a trainer or something because today I was pretty much on the couch watching Dave finishing season 2, and I was
Mm-hmm.
injured. I just gotta walk it off, but it's like it throws everything off, dude. So I gotta figure that out.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I
So
can't.
that's a lot of information.
Well. And here's the other side: is like, I don't even know the last time I actually went to the gym.
Just stay
Like,
away.
yeah,
Stay away.
I'm not a gym going kind of dude. I
Mhm.
typically, I'm a run around the neighborhood, do jumping like I'm an old school army guy. Like it's like push-ups, sit-ups, and like a 2 mile run. That's what a PT test is in the army. Like that's how I work out. Like I still stretch like it's 2003, and I'm like the overhead arm pull and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
army people get it. But yeah, it's good for you for getting up early and going doing that. I got to say, I'm currently in between jobs as I get ready to start the next endeavor in my career here in a couple weeks. So I'm definitely just kind of going with the flow, relaxing. And I got to say, though, one thing that has me not relaxing is the fact that it's Sunday and Thursday is when trash pickup is, and I already have a full trash can out back. Like that's
Oh,
living on the edge, dude. It's living on the edge.
did you need your, Robin to your Batman, taking that trash, finding the
Yes,
dumpster? That's
yes,
what we
we've
do,
done that.
right?
We've done that before.
How many times have
Hey,
we done that?
too many. Matthew, what are you doing? Hey, can you come over? Why? My trash can's full. I got to go find a local dumpster. Crap.
Yeah.
I think that's a misdemeanor of some sort. So let's
Mhm.
let's move off this topic. So yeah, if you're listening, thank you. If you're watching, thank you again. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you smash that like button while you're here. You can become an elite jamster by clicking the join button or following the link in the description. And if you are listening to the pod, again, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you give us a 5-star review. We'll read it right here on the pod. One thing we're going to be talking about, the primary thing we'll be discussing on this podcast is the Suns summer or the schedule. It has officially been released. It was released on noon on Friday. And as two guys who come to you live after every Suns game, it means a lot to us. I'll find out from Matthew exactly how much it means to him here momentarily. But this is kind of mapping out the next, season of our lives as we go live after every game. So we've got to go through all of the different games, the matchups, the back-to-backs, the home and road games. All the fun stuff is upcoming. So without further ado, we're going to pop open a beer because I know Matthew is definitely drinking a beer after going to the gym today and perspiring and then pulling something.
Yeah. No, just water, man. Gotta get
Look
water
at that,
back in
though.
that
Look at that,
muscle.
though. Look at that cup game, though.
Yeah.
We have the same cup.
I still
We
don't
are
know where my camera
nerds.
is.
Well, I'm after doing pods for like 2 years, Matthew's still just like,
Going the wrong way.
where's the camera? Well, I'm going to be having a Phoenix Beer Company Gold beer tonight. So let's pop them open. Pop them if you got them, Suns fans. Unless you're listening to the pod and you're driving to work tomorrow, then don't do that because your boss will get very, very frustrated with you. But on that note, let's start the pod and talk about the Phoenix Suns and their schedule for the 2021-22 season. Cheers. I gotta say, Matthew, this Phoenix Beer Company Arizona Gold beer is actually really delicious. That was a good swig there that I just took. Just got back from Fry's, did a little grocery shopping, picked out. I'm like, what beer am I going to be popping on the podcast tonight? And I chose that one, and I'm happy I did. That.
Your one treat, huh?
Yes,
from the store is a 6-pack of beer.
No, my wife took a picture of all the treats that I picked up from the store. I'm sure she'll be sending it around. She's like, I shop with a 5-year-old. She's getting like green onions and potatoes, and like she's like, I'll make stew for you this week. Fantastic. I love stew. And she's like, let me get some rhubarb and all this like nice healthy stuff. And I'm like, Lunchables, beer, a DiGiorno pizza, some Red Bulls and Gatorade because I'm going golfing in the morning. Like, I am a child.
Nice. Dude, where are you going golfing tomorrow?
Stone Creek 612.
Okay, I always ask you, like, I know where these places are.
So Jamsters, try not to line the fairways as I'm out there. Everyone's going to show up for that. No, what's really cool about going to Stone Creek, though, is that's the one where you can get on the bikes. We got the you got like it's like a motorcycle and you got the golf bag on the back. So yeah, me and some buds are gonna go out there and
very cool, man.
I can I'll be out in the rough just burn, hitting all the berms and such, the arroyos and whatnot.
Enjoy yourself.
I will. You know I will. But before I get to that beautiful tea time at 6:12 in the morning to beat the heat.
Matthew, I got to ask.
So the one thing I've got to ask you, Matthew, is, as the schedule has been released, do you actually look forward to the schedule being released?
When I was younger, yes, definitely. When I was younger and not as much of a loser. Oh, no, I was more of a loser where I didn't have really any plans ever. I would always look forward to schedule releases for all my teams. I would be super excited to see, okay, so my weekends are covered Friday, Saturday. Now I have an excuse to say, like, oh, I had to stay in and watch the Suns. So, yeah, I used to a lot. Now, I honestly, John, for this podcast, we will dive deep into what's going on with the Suns next year, but I just don't get that excited. I apologize.
No, it's okay. Like, I'm the same way. I'm more of a football schedule release guy. Like, as a Notre Dame fan, as an Arizona Cardinal fan, whenever they release both of those schedules, I'm highly interested because there's just less games. With Notre Dame, it's always interesting to see who they're going to play because they are an independent school. So that they have an affiliation with the ACC, but who are their non-conference games going to be? Like this year, they start with Florida State. Interesting to me. And when the Cardinals come out, again, it's a 17-game schedule this season, but you just want to see, like, what are the home games? What are the away games? Is this going to fit into my life somehow? Because it is few and far between. So I can empathize with you there because I do get excited when the Suns schedule comes out because I graphically designed it up. I mean, for those of you who follow me on Twitter at Darth Voida, you'll know that I am somebody who puts together a full-on schedule, PNG, GIF, JPEG, whatever thing. And it takes me a few hours to actually do that, to put it together, but I get excited for it because while I'm doing that, I'm actually dissecting kind of what the year is going to look like. As you're sitting there and you're creating this, you're like, ooh, February 14th. Oh, no game. There's no Valentine's Day game like there was this past year. So it's like, sweet, I get to do something on Valentine's Day with my wife and not be like, hey, listen, the Suns are playing. So although I don't nearly get as excited for it as I do for football schedules, of course, I still get excited because, especially given the nature of our podcast and how we go live after every game, it's very fun to sit back and just kind of see when they're playing, how it's constructed, and kind of weave in how's my life going to revolve around this for the next year. Like, for example, there is no game on January 18th this year. So I know that if we're celebrating your birthday, we're either going to do it the night before on January 17th to see the Spurs, or we're going to do it a couple days later and watch the Suns play the Mavericks at 8 p.m. against or on January 20th on TNT. So
Yeah.
like as I go through and I look at the schedule, that's what gets me excited.
Yeah, and honestly, those are my birthday options. That's all I have to choose from are those 2 games, and that's it. So all of you guys are invited.
Everybody, we're going to probably Half Moon again. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And this year, for example, like my birthday is October 17th, and we've had years in the past where the Suns started the season on my birthday, which was awesome. And they started a little bit later this year. So, we'll get into the schedule here in a bit, but I do know that you wrote a piece for Bright Side of the Sun called How the 82 Game Season Will Help the Suns. Let's delve into that thought process. Tell me what you were thinking when you wrote that, and kind of let's break it down and tell you why you were wrong.
Yeah, so the only way to wow, that was wrong.
I'm just kidding.
So what I was thinking is really this next year coming up, to repeat what they did last year is going to be even more hard, right, for the Suns, because
Mhm.
now everyone's out to get them. Before, maybe because of the bubble, I remember Espo came on our last podcast last year. We talked about the schedule as much as we could, and we talked about that the way they finished the bubble, they 8-0 run. It's like maybe they have a little bit of a target on their back, but now it is a humongous target on their back. Everyone has it, so every team that comes out here and plays the Suns, or else we go there, it's going to be a battle, man. It's going to be twice as hard, even harder than that, because these guys want to prove themselves, whether or not they're one of the lesser teams down in maybe even trying to fight for a 10th seed, 9th seed like that. It's going to be difficult because they want to prove them to the Suns that, hey, they can hang with the championship contending team. And now, I mean, a lot of this too going into next year, it's going to be motivation for the Suns too, because now they're looked upon as that team. It's like, okay, we got these guys looking up to us. A lot of guys look up to Booker now coming to the league. So you want to show them up, show them, hey, welcome to the league. These young teams, that'll keep them motivated. The Suns will. And I honestly think too, when you're playing the tough teams, you went through them in the playoffs. You swept the Nuggets. A little bit of disrespect still for the Suns with that sweep. So you want to prove to that team, like, hey, we can still handle you. Whether or not you had Jamal Murray back later in the year, who knows? But then when you're also playing like the Lakers and the Clippers at full strength, you want to beat them. You want to show that you can still contend with them. And going back to the 82 game season, it's going to be a lot of games. So the Suns have to manage who they want to show up against. But it seems like it's going to be almost every night. When you're looking at the list of teams, it's like, yeah, there's a reason for these teams to get up against the Suns. So now they have to exert that energy. But I think the Suns like that. I think that Monty, Chris Paul, they want to show up every night to every game. And they're not going to take a night off. So they want to come out and, of course, get a top 1 or 2 seed.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And we saw a little bit of this last season, if you recall, how the Suns came out and after going 8-8, really put a really nice run together. And in doing so, by the back third of the season, there were some teams out there who had circled their matchup with the Phoenix Suns on their schedule and therefore really brought it. And that's not to say that when a team, like the Minnesota Timberwolves, for example, or the Washington Wizards, if they're playing the Suns on a Tuesday night, there's like, oh, no, we're not going to come out and hustle. Like everybody's always going to hustle. Everybody, these are professional athletes. And although some of the superstars might necessarily put in the appropriate effort throughout the entire season, a la, Kevin Durant, he's somebody who said in the past that after continually going to the playoffs and making runs at championships, the regular season just wasn't necessarily something that excited him. But the rest of the roster is. When you have a guy who is the 7th, 8th, 9th guy on the bench coming out there, he's going to give it his all. So I'm not taking anything away from, the Wizards or the Minnesota Timberwolves when they play the Suns and saying that they wouldn't give their effort normally. But when you have a team like the Suns that is going to have as much national exposure as they're going to have plenty of primetime games. This is a team that now has a target on their back. You are going to see people, prepare more mentally for it. This, I think, comes more down to the coaching. When you have, the 72-game season that we saw last year, yeah, muted, but still a lot of games and a lot of nights. I mean, we saw a ton of back-to-backs. I think last year we ended up with 19 back-to-backs. I think that's what the final number was. You look at this season, and the Suns are going to end with a total of how many back-to-backs is it? I have it written down somewhere and I lost it. Gosh darn, 14. We have 14 this year. So you almost have, you have a little bit less back-to-backs this season than you did the last season. But from a coaching standpoint, yeah, the Suns are now the Western Conference champions. They're a team that if you beat this team, you're definitely going to feel good as a fan base, feel good as a team. If you are Minnesota, New Orleans, Houston, some of those cellar dwellers in the Western Conference, these are teams that have to, or these are teams that the Suns have to prepare constantly and consistently for. And that's why I think the Phoenix Suns' depth and the way that they've built this roster is going to be key going into the next season.
Yeah, and all when you have the back-to-backs too, I think what they're trying to do is get rid of like the back-to-backs, the 4 games in 5 nights. So
Yes.
I think that'll help. But it's crazy for the NBA to come back to the 82-game season, but they need it, of course, for money. But does it seem to you like when I look at the 82 games now, I feel like kind of overwhelmed? I know it's only 10 more games, but before I was like, why not just play the 82-game season? Who cares? But now going back into it, do you feel like a little bit overwhelmed at all as a fan, especially when you have a team with Chris Paul who's a little bit older and, you know, a bunch of young guys, but they're going to learn a lot, of course, this year and improve. But it'd be nice if they can play a full season without any injuries. But does it like make you feel weird? Does it make you scared at all?
I wouldn't say scared. I think, but it's a lot of games, and because I think, you know, we are now conditioned, seen as we have not seen a full 82 game season since 2018-19. You know, the last 2 seasons due to COVID have been shorter, and although it's been condensed in spots, you're somebody who's been very anti the 82 game season for a while, though, right?
Yeah, I have. Well, no, actually, before Bill Simmons kind of talked me into it a little bit. You know, you listening to him because he's always wanted to switch it up, and I feel like they're kind of going into like his ideas and kind of, you know, with the play-in tournament a little bit. Like I feel like they kind of listened to him and that, and you know, shorten it up to like 70 games. I think he talks about that a lot too. So he kind of swayed me over. Before I was like, just play 82. I mean, it's the way it's always been. But now I can see. I feel like a more condensed season is better if you can spread them out too. But I feel like maybe that's the next step for the NBA. It's a little bit too soon right now.
Well, it's funny that, you know, so you going back to your question, you know, am I scared of the 82 game season? Obviously not scared, but now that I'm conditioned after these last 2 seasons, I'm anti the 82 game season because of the play-in game, because of the length of the playoffs. I think that 70 games is an appropriate amount. 70 to 72 is an appropriate amount to just have a good understanding of, you know, who the good teams are. And throwing the play-in in there allows an opportunity for some of the teams that are on the fringe to still have a chance to get in there. So it still is exciting. So, you know, it is tough. The nice thing about basketball is it doesn't carry the tradition that like baseball does with it. You know, if you change anything in baseball, it's like, how dare you spit on Mickey Mantle's grave, you know? Like, you know, basketball, it's always changing and it's fluid. And that's what makes it, you know, my favorite sport to consume and to watch and to follow is for just for that reason. Outside of football, I love football. But football's the same way. They're like, we're throwing 17 games now, you know, which is great because I'm a fantasy football player.
And I keep forgetting about that too until someone talks about it. I'm like, oh yeah, 17 games, 3 preseason games too. So
yeah, that reminds me. In our fantasy league, I got to make sure I add an extra week. I don't know if I've done that yet because there's an extra week.
That's gonna happen. That's gonna happen to a lot of managers out there, man.
Yeah,
so good luck.
But that's thank you. But that's, you know, again. So as you look at the 82 game schedule, yeah, it does feel overwhelming. You know, as I look at the schedule in its totality, you know, I'm bringing up the graphic on the screen for those of you who are watching. If you're listening, you can't see it, obviously. But it's a lot of games, you know, that just putting this thing together, it's massive. It's a lot of games. Now, that being said, you know, it is tradition. It is, you know, although I just kind of knocked the tradition a little bit, you know, it is what it is at this point. So, you know, knowing that it is what it is, I guess it's time to really just start to kind of take a look at some of the things. And, you know, the setup is the same as it was before. You know, there's a home and home with the with all Eastern Conference opponents. So that accounts for 30 games of the season because there's 15 teams over there in the Eastern Conference. You play them twice, one at home, one away. You have 4 games against our Pacific Division foes, and that accounts for 16 games. And then there's 3 games against all other Western Conference teams, and that accounts for 30 games. Now, if you add that up, 30, 16, that's 76 games. So what the NBA has to do is they leave 6 games remaining to fill, which is used versus a combination of the remaining 10 Western Conference teams outside of the Pacific Division. You know, even that right there, like if the NBA just want to get rid of 6 games and make it 76 and just go, okay, it's 30 versus everybody in the East, it's 30 versus everyone in the West who is not in your division, and 16 versus your Pacific Division rivals. Wouldn't that even make more sense?
It would, and honestly, just to chop it down, I think honestly everything you're saying right now is what they're saying to each other. I feel like behind the closed doors, but I think coming off of what they just had to go through with COVID, and everyone had to go through, and
But
shutting
of
down the
course,
season and losing all that money, they have to make it up. They can't make these adjustments. I feel like yet, so I feel like if they can get through this full season, have the play in, then the playoffs, and yes, it's so drastically long. I honestly think that they go into the next season, a 2022-2023 season, and they'll have a shorter season. I think that, and they might have a mid-season tournament or something weird, but they will chop this a little bit. I mean, it has to be at least 72 games again because it just felt right, and it was more compact, but it just felt right as a fan. I feel like the players didn't really gripe about it, unless the play-in they did gripe about that, but the actual schedule, not too much with this 72 games.
well, it was only more compact because they didn't start in October. Had they
Yeah.
started in October, it would have really been spread out. It would have been really nice for the players. But again, I think that we both agree that the best way to do it for the NBA is start on Christmas Day, and then you're ending just like they did this past NBA season in July when you own the airwaves. And I get the whole, well, the majority of people are out on summer break, so they're not consuming the content. Bullshit. Get out of here with that. If you're on summer break and you care,
Yeah.
and the Phoenix Suns are in the playoffs, guess what? While you're out in San Diego vacationing from Arizona, you're going to find a local bar and you're going to go watch the game. I mean, that's just what you do.
Yeah, and when you were saying that, I was just thinking these players. I feel like now they have the opportunities to do so much more, marketing wise of their own brand, and these 82 game schedules. I feel like, do you think it hits it too much to where they just have so much to focus on for the games? They would like more days off in between to really focus on other things they want to do. Does that make sense? I feel like a lot of
Yeah,
these
I get
players
it.
probably, when they're just at the superstardom now, they kind of think like, oh, come on, like I got a game here and there, but I want to do these shoots and stuff. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know
but
if that's a thing or not.
that's the top like 5% of the NBA though. That's not
Okay.
like, Juan
I'm
Herman
just
Gomez
thinking.
or whatever. No, I get it,
Yeah.
but again, they're paid. The only reason that they're having those photo shoots and having those advertisements and things of that nature because they play the game. So you can't do it unless you're playing the game and playing the game well. So,
Mm-hmm.
again, I think that they need to focus on playing the games. But that being said, 82 games. There's essentially 6 remaining games to fill. And that's 6 for Phoenix this season. The teams that they're going to play 4 times rather than 3 times in the Western Conference are Utah, Portland, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, New Orleans, and Houston. And I think that that's a plus for Phoenix. Obviously
Yeah.
Utah was the number 1 overall seed last season. It's going to be a great, we get an extra game against Utah. Portland, we'll see how they kind of are constructed. I think that both of us weren't necessarily impressed with what they've done with the offseason thus far. But knowing that you have to play an extra game against San Antonio, Oklahoma City, New Orleans, and Houston, like that's good for the Suns.
It is, yeah. It's surprising when you're saying that because those are the lesser teams that you want to face, but then it's also scary because what if they turn things around? Especially like the Spurs. But the Rockets are not going to be good. The Pelicans, they have a long way to go until next offseason. So those are 2 matchups that you want to play over and over again every night.
Exactly. Anytime you can, that's going to be fantastic. So a couple of things of note as we take a look at this schedule. See if I can zoom in there. If that's working on the deal. Okay, it is cool. So the first, the longest homestand actually of the season, it is from October 27th to November 6th. It's games 4 through 8 for the Suns. So they're going to start the season against Denver, 7 p.m. ESPN on October 20th. Obviously, that's going to be kind of a hey, we swept you. You were the MVP. Sorry that we disrespected you kind of thing. Not sorry. But then we, the next night or next game, actually, we play the Lakers on ESPN on the road and then Portland on NBA TV. So right there, I mean, you instantly see the impact of the Phoenix Suns season last season in which they went to the West or they won the Western Conference championship and went to the NBA Finals. Their first 3 games are all nationally televised if you count NBA TV as a nationally televised game. So, as you look at the total count, again, if you count NBA TV as nationally televised games, this team 34 times will appear on a national level. 11 times on ESPN, 11 times on NBA TV, 9 times on TNT, and 3 times on ABC. Matthew, isn't this a far cry from 2 years ago when they had 1 national TV game?
Can you believe that?
Jesus
Man, the
Christ.
jump they made, not even just, going to the championship the next year after the bubble run. It's crazy to even think because I'm honestly thinking that when you look at like the 8:30 o'clock games, it kind of sucks for us, but for
Yes.
everyone else, they need to see this team because the best part about them is they're still growing. So, you know, DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker still aren't automated superstars or all stars, right? They're just, you know, they have to still grind their way to that path, unlike a lot of players who just naturally will get there. So to watch that for the national audience to see it every other night, it's going to be great because that's good basketball. You see the development of this team that a lot of people, a lot of players, and even fans love to see these teams that are grown from the draft. And you have a leader like Chris Paul. It's just that's the right way to do it right now in the NBA, and I think a lot of people appreciate that.
This reminds me so much of the Cardinals season after they went to the 2016 NFC Championship, where they lost to the Carolina Panthers, and the next year I think they had like 6 or 7 national games, like Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. Obviously, every team gets a Thursday Night Football game, but they were featured heavily the following season on national TV, and man, did they suck. They were not good the next year.
So what are you saying, man? I'm already worried about it.
I get worried about these kind of things. You know, again, the beautiful thing, it's not beautiful, it's just a victim of circumstance thing. But the thing about being a Suns fan for the past decade is you are operating with no expectations. And going into last season, and we talked about it continually on the podcast, how weird it was to actually meet/exceed our expectations. We didn't know how to deal with it as Suns fans. And now the expectations are increased, obviously, and the national media is going to be right along there with microphones in the Suns players' faces along the way as we navigate this upcoming season. That's just, you know, it is what it is. It's fine. I'm glad that that's occurring. I'd rather feel this than have no expectations again and suck. But again, it obviously makes you scared.
It does, but we just have to, because the way they performed last year, and you know, of course, not winning at all, but they did succeed. And they did a lot that we didn't think they could do. So you have that feeling, like I already do, of just being scared. You know, the injury bug, what might happen to Chris Paul. You know, things like that come into your head. But you know, when you have the development of these young players that still want to just play every night, I just get so scared that they're gonna get hurt. Like just the whole season's thrown away. But
you know what? That happens to
just
every
gotta
team
face
every
it, man.
year. And what's beautiful about the Suns is their depth. And that's the key.
Yeah.
What sucks about the past is when you had like Devin Booker nursing something, or TJ Warren had a hurt ankle fucking forever. Like, we had no depth behind those guys, so you couldn't pull anything out. And every team will be nicked up. Members of the Suns will be nicked up this season. Like, that's just you have to accept that in basketball more than any other sport because of the value of one player. You know, it's not like a tight end is going out or your third baseman's out. You know, this is somebody who accounts for 20% of your roster on both sides of the ball. So it will happen, you know, and I'm with you and I get it. But at the same time, like, I'm more just scared of the expectation and not delivering on that expectation rather than not delivering on the expectation because of an injury or things of that nature. That's what always worries me. And that's just being a fan of any team going into any season anywhere. So this isn't unique to the Phoenix Suns. Looking at that first big homestand, the largest one of the year, October 27th, they play the Kings, then they got the Cavs, then they got New Orleans, then they got the Rockets, and they got Atlanta. I'll tell you this, the Suns, in theory, should have a very solid start to the season. If you look at their first few games, including that 5-game homestand, they have some relatively easy competition. They start against the Nuggets, they play the Lakers and Portland, and they go on that 5-game stretch that I just mentioned. And then they're on the road real quick against the Kings, and then they're back against Portland, and then they play Memphis and Houston again. So, you know, as you look at kind of their first, 10, 11 games, they could potentially run off like an 8-3 and have just a very fast start to the season, Matthew.
Oh, and you could predict this in the NBA too. In the NFL, if you're talking about, oh man, it's going to be an easy season next year, the teams flip-flop so much between last season and this season coming up. Like, the worst teams can be the best teams next year in the NFL. NBA, it just takes time. And when you're watching it, you're pretty much watching it on paper as it goes, right? With these teams put together, like, yeah, it's not going to work unless something just happens where they have a good defensive scheme or something weird. But yeah, if you look at the homestand, that is cinchy. Right now, we're saying it's easy. And by the time we actually open up the season, we play Denver, we'll look ahead and be like, all right, this should be the same thing, except for Atlanta, of course, being a threat.
Yes.
But maybe even the Kings might be a little bit harder than we would think, but right now in the beginning of the year, we're going to say these are easier games for the Suns.
And well, and outside, again, you mentioned how it's like you don't flip flop very easily in the NBA unless you're
Yeah.
the Phoenix Suns last year. Like but we are so the
Yeah.
outlier of that occurring versus
But we did get Chris Paul, so I mean,
yes,
you know what I mean. So
the exception to the
a
rule
little
for
bit of an
sure.
impact.
Yeah, with exception to the rule for sure. But again, yeah, I think it potentially, and I'm not going to go through every freaking game of this season, but I am just going to say like I do expect a strong start from the Phoenix Suns in this upcoming season. As the games progress, they've got some decent road trips, things of that nature to start. Some good. When you go Memphis to Houston to Minnesota as your first 3-game road trip of the season, that's a good opportunity to just kind of get your footing your footing on the road and get into the rhythm of the games. And I think that it's going to be very, very important for the Phoenix Suns to have a good start to the season because the back end of the season is going to be really a challenge. If you look at their last, I think it's what did I write down? It's like their
13 of the last
13
of the last 19.
13 of their last 19 are on the road. Yeah. And you also take into account from a back-to-back standpoint, as I mentioned, we have 14 back-to-backs. Only one is occurring at home. And that is going to be in February. Let's see if I can find it real quick. It's the Clippers and the Rockets on the 15th and 16th. That's the only back-to-back that occurs on the road. All other back-to-backs will occur either at home. 9 are going to be on the road and 4 are home road splits. That's kind of fucked.
This is why when you say 82-game season, you look into it, you're like, oh, this is nasty. I guess the more you zoom in, the more nastier it gets, John.
Well, from a graphic design standpoint, it looks great, but
it looks good, but it's just like the back-to-backs. You got this long road trip. I can't even see if they play any more home games because you're so zoomed in. You know what I mean?
There you go.
There you go.
Well, and the longest road trip of the season starts on January 11th in Toronto. Then they go to Detroit, which is like throwing a football from Scottsdale to Goodyear. It's not that far. Then they go Indiana, San Antonio, and then Dallas. That's their longest road trip, a 5-gamer. Right over your birthday, so they'll be out of town for your birthday. There's no going to a Suns game this year. I do apologize for 31-year-old Matthew.
31, 33-year-old.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Holy shit! I thought you were 30.
No, it's almost over, dude. Just threw out my back today.
So I was doing some squats today.
Sure. I wasn't even doing that much either.
What were you doing?
I was just doing like lat pull downs or whatever, and then I think I was using my neck or something weird, and I don't know. I was like, because when you're younger, you're like, I'm not gonna pull anything. I never did ever, and then now, like the last year, I'm just like pulling everything. Everything's gone.
Oh, poor Matthew. That's what happens,
right.
Man. It hurts longer. Yeah. It hurts longer. Yeah, February 10th is when we play the Bucks for the first time at home on TNT, 8 p.m. game. So we'll be going live at like 10 o'clock at night on the Suns Jam Session podcast. Anything else that you notice just kind of in looking at the schedule that you're just like, damn, outside of the back-to-backs? I mean, let's have that back-to-back conversation right now.
Mm-hmm.
It is frustrating that we only get one at home. We have 14 back-to-backs. Okay, you get one at home. That is 7% of all your back-to-backs are home or at home. I do think that is kind of a screw job, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, and it's something that still blows my mind, even when they probably had to scramble for this season to get the schedule going. How does 14 even happen still? I thought we were in coming into the new seasons. I thought we were thinking maybe 8 max, 7, something like that for these teams, but 14 is still a lot. And it's funny when you go through the season, they're playing these games, you barely notice. Like you'll be on your 12th by the time you know it, but still it takes its toll on these guys, and we know it does. They talk about it every year, and still no action has been made. But I really think next season, even though we say that too, next season we'll dwindle it down to maybe 5 or 6 of them. But 14 is way too much for me, man. I hate it.
Really do. But it makes sense, I guess, mathematically. If you look at it, there's 172 days between the 20th of October, which is opening day tip-off, and April 10th, which is our last game against the Kings. And if you look at it, if you take 172 and divide that by 82 total games, it's about 3 is what it comes out to. So, I mean, if they space out the schedule to where everybody just played like once every third night, it would be perfect. But we live in an imperfect world, and therefore they're going to throw these back-to-backs at us. They're going to throw, some weird things when it comes to, like we have a back-to-back. Where is it? Well, I think the toughest stretch of the season is actually going to be in November. Let's see. Where is it? The November. All right, here you go. November 22nd to the 27th, right here. This is 4 games and 5 nights. You got San Antonio on the road. Then you go up to Cleveland 2 nights later. Then you go to New York on the 26th, and the next night you're playing Brooklyn. And I get it, you have Madison Square Garden and the Barclays Center is probably like 7 miles from each other, but still you're playing tough competition, 2 playoff teams back to back, right around Thanksgiving time too. I mean, that's just going to be, and if you take into account that the 21st, the night before the Suns start that road trip against San Antonio, the night before they're playing Denver at home on the 21st. So that little, 8-day stretch is going to be very, it's 6 games or 5 games and 8 nights, I think is what it comes out to. I get what you're saying. How has this happened in this modern NBA? It's the same thing it's always been. Ever since they went to the 82 game season, which God, I don't know the answer to when that is. I'm sure a Jamster in the chat could tell us. There's always been a ton of back-to-backs and a ton of games just like this. I just think that because LeBron James is in the league, it more now because he's he's the biggest crybaby.
You don't like the guy, huh? Yeah, but then also you have to look at these teams and like the Brooklyn Nets, that might be load management. That you might be looking at that, but then when you look at the Spurs and the Knicks, those are 2 teams that are still younger, trying to figure things out. Especially the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau is not going to give them a night off. There's not going to be any load management there. He's going to play them into the ground. And if you're going off from the Brooklyn Nets to the Warriors, if they're healthy by then, that's scary to play that, and then you play the Warriors again 5 days later. So if you're playing those 3 games, you'll be like, oh, maybe load management will help us. But now the Suns, since they were in the championship, the Western Conference Finals, they won that. So these teams are definitely going to be looking at them. And they might not even sit their players because that might have been something in the past, right? Before the bubble experience, all of that. These teams would sit their players against the Suns. Now, there's no way these teams, unless like the Warriors do beat them both times, we play them the 3rd time, and the Warriors just come out, and sit a couple guys because they know they can handle the Suns. That's something different, but they're not going to be looking to do that, I don't think, at all.
No, you're spot on. I mean, playing against the Phoenix Suns for the past decade was your load management nights. You'd be shocked to see both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George out there if you were playing against the Clippers because there was no reason to. This is the night they could take a night off, and that's not going to happen this season. And I think that as we navigate this entire schedule, there's going to be a lot of games where teams are going to be bringing it. That's why we were talking about a little bit earlier. What are your thoughts on Christmas? Okay, we've got the Warriors on Christmas.
Yeah. I'm excited. My favorite thing Christmas Day is I know the games are on, and I usually plan this out. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but I like to get the Snuggie on early. The treats are out there. If I go to my mom's, go to my sister's, always bring the Snuggie. You never know where there's going to be a TV and a game's going to be on. So then you're ready to go. So now the Suns are part of that experience.
Yes.
And there's nothing better than that because I do love Christmas Day basketball. I do love it a lot. Even if sometimes I only 1 year, I might just watch it maybe 2 hours, but I know what's on. I know I can go to it wherever I'm at that day.
Yeah, I'm with you 110%. I don't sit there and watch it all day long. Obviously, I'm experiencing Christmas with the family, but at the same time, like if there's a matchup I want to see, I will definitely be watching it. And now knowing that the Suns are playing Golden State on ABC at 3 p.m., that's like perfect time. It's not the first early game because typically it's like we're meeting up somewhere, we're going to your mom's house, and the kids are playing and whatnot, or it's not too late in the evening. It's like it's right after kind of everybody said like Merry Christmas. We listen to Mariah Carey a couple times, and once that's done, everybody's like kind of standing around looking at each other like what's next. We'll be ready to watch this game, and by the time it's over, be time to go live on the pod about 5:00. It's like the perfect time to do it. I'm really excited for that Christmas game.
I love how you just tell me right now we're going live on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Yes. Merry Christmas, Jamsters. We're going live on Christmas Day.
Yeah, well, I guess if Tom and EJ can do it, we can do it, right?
We can do it too.
Post-game stuff.
So someday you and I will be the new Tom and EJ, okay?
All right.
We're
And
gonna be
we'll
the
think about these
ones.
moments. We'll be like, remember Christmas?
Remember Christmas
We
2021?
do an hour pod, like drunk off of eggnog. Yeah.
having some of the nog. It was a good time. It was a good time. I will reference one more time the back end of the schedule where you start in March on the road against the Bucks. That's our second game against the Bucks. It's an ABC game, 1:30 p.m. Then you go to Orlando right after that, 2 days later. And then that's the first of a back-to-back against the Heat. And then you have Toronto and the Lakers at home. You're on the road for New Orleans and the Rockets, which I'm not overly worried about at this point in life, considering it's August 22nd. So, telling you that March 15th and 16th, that back-to-back scares me against the Rockets. Currently, it doesn't. Who knows what will happen? You one game at home against the Bulls, and then you have a 3-game road trip against Sacramento, the Minnesota Timberwolves. That starts the first of a back-to-back against the Nuggets. You're at home 1 game against the Sixers, then it's another 3-game road trip, then you're at home 1 game for the Lakers, it's a 2-game road trip, and you end at home with the Sacramento Kings. That's just the frustrating part. Again, I referenced the beginning of the schedule and how important it is for the Suns to get out to a good start. It's because that back end of the schedule is pretty mucky. You look at April overall, you're not playing, you're playing the Kings, you're playing OKC, you're playing the Grizz, but you also got the Lakers, the Clippers, and then the Jazz right in there. And right before that, you have Golden State on the 30th of March. So that's going to be a tough segment of the schedule to navigate, similar to how it was this past season for the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns had, I think, 12 of the last 16 were on the road. Why do we end up on the road at the end of every season, Matthew? Oh,
I
tell
don't
me
know.
why.
But honestly, we're one of those teams now, right? That there's another pod out there. They're doing the schedule release, like, oh, we got to play the Suns this day and that day, last game of the season.
True.
These teams are gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be tough. So we are that team now too. And I think last year didn't we play a lot of the games on the road to finish? It was like the same kind of thing, right?
Yeah, 16 out of 12 out of last 16.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah.
So so
just said that. Literally just
I
said
know,
that.
my bad, man.
You're just still thinking about Christmas, aren't you? You're like, God, this son of a bitch is
Thinking
gonna
about
be
eggnog.
talking.
I'm excited for eggnog, all right?
I don't like eggnog.
Oh, okay. I feel like we do this every year, but you don't like eggnog, right?
I'm
I
not
feel
a
like
fan.
you always tell us that you don't, but
I don't like milk.
okay,
I
what
don't-
do you drink? Don't you have the Christmas vacation cup though with the antlers? What do you
Yeah.
drink in that? That's for
Like-
eggnog.
Yeah, but I don't drink eggnog out of it. I drink like water.
Oh, okay. I thought you always had eggnog in it.
Maybe I'll
It's a
put
little-
some whiskey in there. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
put milk in my cereal. I don't like milk.
You
Milk's
just
just gross to me.
consistency. It's like
Yeah.
consistency or
It's,
something.
it's a flavor. It's a consistency.
Mhm.
The fact that it spoils as easily as it does means it does not need to be in my body. And that being said, like I love cheese, so like I'm just the weirdest, stupidest person. I
You
make
just
no
make up
sense.
your own rules as you
I
go.
do.
Yeah.
I hate mayonnaise with a passion, but like I love avocado aioli. Like that makes no sense. It's 50%, if not more, mayonnaise. Like
Oh wow.
I'm just
Yeah,
a weird
that's-
dude.
It's not weird, man. You probably just had a bad experience with it all. That's why, when is it gosh, what's our favorite Chiba Hut? Our favorite
Yes.
sandwich.
Oh, I
place.
love
We
Chiba Hut.
but I had like Chiba Hut maybe 3 weeks ago, and it was really slimy and gross, and it grossed me out for a couple weeks, and I finally got it today, but I was like, it took me a while to
White
come
Widow?
back to it. Yeah, it was just not good. So then it
Ugh.
ruined it for me for a while. So I'm back
Yeah,
at it though.
Rick in the chat says milk with cereal is one of the greatest combos ever made.
That
I
is
know
true.
everybody
Nothing
loves
better.
it. I just don't. I don't like wet cereal. I
Yes.
don't like curdled. Like milk can curdle. It's gross. And it all comes back to like a traumatic event where I think like when I was a kid, my mom took a bowl of cereal, dumped it on my sister's head because she was being
Yeah.
annoying, and like I'll forever have that imprint of like milk and cereal running down my sister's face as she's crying. Like my
Oh
mom
my
really,
god.
my mom really jacked me up with that move that day.
Whoa, all right,
Yeah.
man. We
Some
gotta
deep psychological stuff happened on the
Yeah.
jam session here.
we gotta
Come for the
get you
schedule
scheduled.
release. Hear about John's fear of milk.
We gotta get you scheduled for an appointment with a therapist, man. That's the
No, I'm good.
reason I
I'm
brought it
com-
out of you, I guess.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable not liking milk.
That's why you don't
You
like
know?
milk.
I'm 100% okay with it. So let's finishing up there. Is there anything else on the schedule that you want to talk about? I know it's way too early, but
Mm,
how many
Mm.
wins do you think the Suns will end with? Give me a
I think that-
number.
I think 50 at least this
Okay.
year. And I know a top seed is something they're looking for, but I just think it's gonna be tough this year. And I think, the way they escaped injuries last year, I'm not trying to jinx them or anything. It might happen this year. They might have to sit out a few guys. They might go through a bad stretch where they lose 8 out of 10 or something weird. Something
Yeah.
might happen.
You never know.
And we're looking towards a big, long season that might come with some injuries. And I'm just saying, if that happens, 50 wins is my mark right now that I want them to get at. 56 right now, max, that I'm thinking.
Okay. 56. I like that. That's a good number. I definitely think it's achievable.
Yeah.
Before I get into my prediction for the season, I just want to remind everybody who's listening, you can enter the code SUNSJAM at checkout on shopjustsports.com for 15% off of your purchase. And if you go to manscaped.com and use the code SUNSJAM, you're going to get free shipping on the Lawnmower 4.0. You got to get that thing. They sent it to us. I use it all the time on my beard. It's a great thing.
I use it to shave my face. Too.
Yeah, I use it to shave my face. It's meant for my nuts. I use it on my face. I'm
It's
that
the same
comfortable
thing,
using
though, right?
it. So
it's the same thing. I was looking at it and I was like, it just has a light on it.
yeah, it has
like,
a light and
is
it
the
like
same
vibrates
thing.
a little
so
bit.
when you
It's
go in
fantastic.
the cave inside
Yeah.
the tuna can, when you go in the tuna can, you can see
Yes.
inside there, but
Yes.
you can use it on your face, dude.
So again, use code SUNSJAM when you go to Manscaped as well. Daniel Thompson in the chat, thank you for joining us. He says 54 wins.
Okay.
Rick says 55 plus. Fabio says it's going to be a hard season, so he's just going to guess 74. So 74 and 8. 60 plus wins for the Boogie Trend, one of our loyal jamsters. You got and so Rick, he went from 55 plus, he's saying 58. And you got to remember, for the Phoenix Suns, their best seasons ever, twice they've gone 62 and 20. That was the 92-93 team and the 2004-2005 team. Roy's got them winning 65 wins. So, it's great to see the optimism. I actually put a poll out on brightsideofthesun.com asking this very question. And, you take a look. We had a total of, so far, 225 different people have responded on that one or on that particular poll. And just kind of taking a look at where everybody landed, we have 60 plus wins. 20% of the voters have voted for that. You have between 55 and 59 wins, which is right where you're at, Matthew, because you said, 56, correct?
50 to 54 is more where I'm at, I think.
Okay. So 44,
right now,
the vast majority said between 55 and 59 wins. 50 to 54 wins is 29% of the voters on Bright Side of the Sun. 45 to 49 wins, 4%. And 1%, only 3 votes, said 40 to 44. So, and then nothing below that. So the reason I bring this up is because of the 225 people who voted on brightsideofthesun.com thus far in this poll, everybody believes that the Suns are at least going to have a 500 season, which I think is just, it's the Suns, man. Like, this is fantastic. This is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
This is where we need to be. So, again, 56 from Mega Giants is a good number, but he believes the Suns can get a number 1 seed. And who knows, 56 might be good enough for a 1 seed. We have 52 from David Bailey, who's joining us. 69 would be nice from Fabio because giggity. All right. 67 wins from James Kelly. But serious guess from Fabio says 57. I'm going to agree with what David says right here. Says the league is tough. Winning in the NBA is tough. Let's not forget this, Suns fans. And I do believe that we have a team that is deep. I do believe we have a team that's going to develop even more chemistry off of what they did last year. Again, remember the first 16 games we were 8-8 because we were just developing that chemistry. Boom, that chemistry is already there. So we're going to have that nice hot start. Barring injuries and things of that nature, knowing that we have a deep team that has chemistry, I really think that we're going to end right in that 55 to 59 range. I think like 58 is a good number. Now, granted, so many X factors. It's August 22nd. There's no way I could sit here on August 22nd and comfortably tell you the Suns will win 58 games. But my early predictions, just so we have it on tape, Matthew, it's on the YouTube tape now. I say 58 wins for the Phoenix Suns.
Okay. No, I like that number, and he's totally right. It's going to get a lot tougher, and just to come away with 50 wins at least is going to be success for me in my eyes for this team going into
Without
next year.
a doubt.
There's a lot of expectations, and yes, ride that chemistry wave all the way to the playoffs next year because they'll have that for sure. While all these teams figure out who they want to rest all season long, a lot of the tougher teams, and then the teams that want to beat us that are below us, when they come into each game, they're going to make sure that they're up, they're ready to go. So it is going to be super tough, man. A lot of anxiety. I mean, the playoffs were anxiety high, but when we come on these pods after games and the Suns might have lost one to a cheesy team that we should have beat. I mean, it happened maybe only a few times last year. This year,
Yes.
it might happen. Who knows? And it might not just be the effort of the Suns. It might be the effort of the other team. Because before, it'd be like the effort of the Suns just like not coming through like they normally would. This time, it's going to be, can they get up for against these teams, which they will for sure. It's just whether or not, the effort's there. And it has to be every single night right now. Unless I would just want to throw a game. unless they got some money on the line or something, they want to just throw it.
Unless Scott Foster's refereeing, then we stand no chance.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I don't know what else to talk about relative to the Suns' schedule. I guess Roy brings up a good question.
Yeah.
Does pineapple belong on pizza, Matthew?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow,
I'm all
that
about
was
it now.
very aggressive and sure. Like you're a Hawaiian pizza guy, I take it.
I am now, man. I feel like I talked about it 2 times in the past week with other people.
Really?
I'm just, as soon as I got to like my 29th year of age, I was like, pineapple tastes really good with anything, honestly, on a pizza. I love it. I go to Mod Pizza. I put it on my pizza now for the last 3 years. And it's something that I feel like I have to have now. And pineapple by itself is so good, but on a pizza,
I love pineapple.
I feel like it's better on a pizza. I don't know why, because it just mixed with everything, the savory tastes and all that. I feel like it just meshes so well with all the ingredients that I get on my pizzas.
I don't know why this is a debate. And Roy says in the chat, he's like, no, it does not. He's like, it does not, man. I don't know why this is a debate. Anything goes on pizza. That's the beauty of pizza. You can put literally anything on there. They put fucking anchovies on there. Anchovies are disgusting. They're like fish.
Have you had anchovy pizza though? Have you had it?
No, I've never had it.
I've
that's
never
gross
had
to me.
it.
But it's still,
yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you don't like it. It's like milk with cereal. I'm not saying you can't put milk with cereal. I'm just saying I personally don't like it. I am clearly in the minority in this one. It's the same thing. Like is a hot dog a sandwich? That's another thing I saw. Somebody was talking about that on Twitter the other day. It's like a hot dog a sandwich. I always see that one. Do you think a hot dog is a sandwich?
This is tough because Dan Le Batard's show had a big debate about it. It went on for weeks, and I think it was no, but I never thought of it as a sandwich. I know it's in between 2 pieces of bread, but it's still connected. So anything like a pita that's connected is usually something else. Like you don't say a pita is a sandwich, right? A pita is a pita, and a hot dog is a hot dog, and then a hot dog bun, and then bread is bread. Right, so I don't think it's a sandwich.
See, I think by definition it is because it's 2 pieces of breath,
breast,
two pieces of breast, 2 pieces of bread with something in the middle. A pita, by my definition, is a sandwich as well. Like if I'm building out a menu and I'm going to include those on sandwiches, I've included a quesadilla on a sandwich too. It's 2 pieces of tortilla with something in the middle. It can be defined as a sandwich.
I don't know. It's still connected too, because a lot of people that do the quesadillas, they keep it connected and just fold it. So no, I don't think so. So we're totally opposite on this. I think a sandwich is not a hot dog.
Well, yes, I disagree, and that's just again, I'm the guy who doesn't like milk, so whatever. Alejandro says in the chat, rest CP3 and back-to-backs, and other players also. Playoffs may be like another small season, and their injuries appear. That's always going to be the question with the Phoenix Suns in this schedule is when and where we can seize opportunities to try to give CP3 time off. But I think we all know CP3 don't want time off. He wants to play. I mean, that was the whole thing going into Oklahoma City when he joined that squad. And they're like, listen, these are the days you're going to be scheduled off. He's like, bullshit, I'm playing. The Boogie Trend responds. He says CP3 doesn't need to take any times off. He's good. He's not an old man. He's played in all but 3 games in the past 2 regular seasons. He'll be fine.
It's crazy.
No, go ahead. Say what you're going to say, and I'll say
what
I'll
I was
say
going to
about
say that's
that.
crazy that he's done that because, of course, when he goes in the playoffs, he gets hurt. But I love it. I love it because there's no proof, of course, we talked about with them, if there's any rest, if it compares to them getting injured or not. There's no comparison. There's no scientific evidence about that, dude. So what were we going to say? I wasn't going to say anything, honestly.
No, I was just going to say, like, Chris Paul, the way that he plays basketball, like, he doesn't need to take time off. He's not a guy like John Morant who's, flying towards Russell Westbrook, flying to the basket, doing crazy things physically. Like, he is a pace player who plays within the confines of his own physical abilities. And he's damn good at it, too. He's got it down to an art. And we've seen that, as the Boogie Trend mentions, over the last 2 seasons. I agree with what Los Suns says in the chat. He says, it's just give him less minutes. Yeah, when the opportunities arise, and given the depth of this team, you can play him less minutes. Like, he doesn't need to be out there for a prolonged period of time. If Chris Paul can operate this offense the way that he does, effectively and do it, in essentially, I don't know, 27 minutes a game. I really think that that's going to be something that will be productive for this team, and he could still display that leadership. Last season he was at 31.4 minutes per game. The season prior he was at 31.5. I wrote a whole article last season about how effective he is, how effective Monty was at resting him in certain situations, and how effective the Suns were in those opportunities, and they were still pretty effective. So I don't think it's going to be a ton of rest him in back-to-backs. I'm not a big fan of resting to back-to-backs. I know you're not a big fan of load management either. I don't think that it helps continuity. I think it hurts more than it helps, especially when you're a team like the Suns, where A, people are gunning for you, and B, you're gunning for that number one spot. If you're a team that's going to be kind of stuck there in the middle and you don't have an opportunity outside of the top 4 seeds to have some semblance of home court advantage in the playoffs, you're going to be resting those guys a little bit. But the Suns, just like last season, they didn't rest anybody because they didn't need to. Or I'm sorry, it's not that they didn't need to. They were going for that number 1 seed. They didn't want to.
Yeah, and they had to prove something too. That was a big thing, and they still have to prove something. They have to actually prove something every night against these teams. So you can't just blow your way through this and rest. Like if you're Kawhi Leonard or Anthony Davis, rest a couple games here or there, because the Lakers knew, the Clippers knew, if we're in the playoffs and we're healthy and it didn't work out for them, we're going to win. We're going to win it all. Okay. Either one of them. And they could have probably if they were healthy. But the Suns don't have that luxury right now to where they can rest these guys and just know by the playoffs, hey, we'll get it together. They don't have that yet. Maybe by midseason, they will prove that if they just take off to a different level. But right now, they got to play every game and play this whole season as if they have something to prove again. So that's going to be a lot of freaking work. I don't know how these guys do it, dude. As soon as I see Hard, I turn around. These guys go through Hard, all right? They go over.
Every time you see Hard, you pull a lat and you just go home. And you're like, ouch. It hurts. It hurts. It boings. So, well, again, I think that it's going to be an interesting season. We now have the schedule. There'll be more opportunities to kind of dissect it as we move forward. But it was fun, Matthew. Spent a little time with you on a Sunday night talking about milk, pineapple on pizza, my garbage can being full, and just know that Roy in the chat, he says he would rather put Dario's big booty instead of pineapple on his pizza.
Oh, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to slice some bacon off of that, huh John?
Slice a ham off of it. Aaron Judge.
Yeah. Inside joke, guys.
On that note, Jamsters, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Make sure you follow the show at Suns Jam on Twitter. You can follow me at Darth Voida. You can follow Matthew
at Matthew Lissy.
If you're listening to the pod, please hit the subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please just scroll down, leave a 5-star review. I don't care what you say in the review. We'll read it right here on the pod. In fact, we've got a new one from DTG Forever who gave us a 5-star review, and he said, the best. Love the post-game shows and all of the unique segments, but most of all, the positive vibes and the spirit of the discourse always leaves me hyped. So DTG Forever, we truly appreciate you giving us one of those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you want to do the same, Jamsters, we truly appreciate it. If you happen to be watching along live with us, one, thank you. You're clearly a Suns fan because it's the off season and you're hanging out with 2 guys just talking about the Suns for no reason on a Sunday night, and you're the real MVP. But make sure you hit the thumbs up button while you're here. Make sure you subscribe as well. Matthew, anything parting words before we part and get departed?
Yeah, thanks for joining, and everyone go home and clean out your family's tuna can. Have a good night.
Use the lawnmower 4.0. Manscaped, Suns Jam.